202.
So the first reading is from 2 Kings. 2 Kings 4, 8 through 11 and 14 through 16. 2 Kings. And we're going to be learning more about Elisha. He got the double portion of the blessing from Elijah.
Elisha.
Elisha, yeah.
Yes, I have. A reading from the second book of Kings. One day Elisha came to Shunem, where there was a woman of influence, who urged him to dine with her. Afterward, whenever he passed by, he used to stop. He used to stop there to dine. So she said to her husband, I know that Elisha is a holy man of God. Since he visits us often, let us arrange a little room on the roof and furnish it for him with a bed, table, chair, and lamp, so that when he comes to us, he can stay there. Sometime later, Elisha arrived and stayed in the room overnight. Later, Elisha asked, can something be done for her? His servant Gehazi answered, yes, she has no son, and her husband is getting on in years. Elisha said, call her. When the woman had been called and stood at the door, Elisha promised, this time next year you will be fondling a baby son. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Well, Elisha was a woman, right?
No, Elisha was a prophet. He was a man.
Oh, he was a man?
Yep.
That's what I gathered too here.
Yeah. Now the woman of influence, so that she had some wealth. I mean, right now she'd probably be dirt poor in our terms, because we have such unbelievable wealth as people. But she urges Elisha to dine with her, and so she has some means, but she uses it. So she's active, and she urges him to, for help. And so I think that's kind of important, is that, if you have wealth, that's fine, but we're called to use our wealth to help God's people, right? So God gives us wealth, and so we're called to use that to help others, that are promoting God's kingdom. Afterwards, whenever he passed by, he used to stop there to dine. So she said to her husband, I know that Elisha is a holy man of God. So she discerns that Elisha is a prophet, or he's a holy man of God, which is important too, right? Because we want to know if we see somebody and we hear him speaking, we want to know, are they a man of God or not? She was given that discernment to know that. And so what does she do? She makes a room for him in her own home. So she makes space in her own home. She gives him a bed, she gives him a chair, a table, and she gives him a lamp. So he's able to go there and stay there whenever he comes by, this is another step. I mean, it's not just an occasional thing, but this is a habitual generosity. Whenever he comes by, he knows that he's going to get fed and he's going to have a place to stay. And so I think that's important too, is that when you have generosity and kindness, that becomes a habit, right? Holiness begins in small, repeated acts of generosity. So that kind of makes me think of Saint Therese, right? Doing little things with great love.
Yeah.
So that's what this woman did. So she's doing great things. So she knows that Elisha's here, and she's feeding him, she's taking care of him, she's helping him. And that's her hospitality is fruitful because he's even using it. I mean, it's not just, here's an offering. No, he's taking her up on it and using it. And so God can't be this is the principle too. God can't be outdone in generosity. When we're generous, don't think, you got to understand, you can't top God. God is going to be so much more generous in return.
5,000 people fed.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know anywhere near that amount.
No, exactly. And so when we have, so Elisha asks Gehazi, and Gehazi knew that the woman, she didn't ask for anything. That's another important principle. She didn't ask for anything. She was just generous without expecting anything in return, right? She was just doing her regular acts of kindness. And he kind of found out, this woman, you know, she may not have said anything, but for some way or another, he found out that she had this like hidden remorse that she didn't have a child, and her husband's getting older, and you know, she's basically without child. And so God grants a miracle, right? She's barren, and now she's able to have a child at an older age. And so what a miracle. I mean, that's amazing. So this is a miracle that God performs through Elisha, the man of God, and she's able to have a child the very next year. And so we cannot outgive God's generosity. Just know that. And I know in particular, and I've used this example before, but I remember I wasn't even practicing Catholic at the time, but I had an extra cow that I went to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I have an extra cow, and I'm wondering where to donate it. He told me to go up to the Solana Center. He goes, oh, he talked to Brother Richard. And I went up there, and I brought the cow, and I mean, it was huge. It was just this massive, you know, and Brother Richard wrote, you know, it saved me 10,000, you know, we fed 10,000 people with this cow. And, but I didn't notice, like a year or so later, my income went up tenfold. That same year, and I, for no particular reason, it just, everything. So, I mean, God was that generous. I was generous, and I didn't even have the right motives. I actually told my dad, I said, well, when I stand before God, maybe I'll have the tax receipt. I donated, and my dad just shook his head, and he said, well, wait till God gets a hold of you. But you can't outdo God in his generosity. Just remember that. Yeah. And so that's very, very important that you know that. But the woman, you know, she recognized that Elisha is a holy man. She's hospitable. She asks for nothing in return, right? And God blesses her. That's the grace of God. So this is kind of a, you know, I love the second book of Kings. You mentioned it too. It has these stories in there. And it's just wonderful, you know, hearing these stories. I mean, we heard Jeremiah last week, and he's the weeping prophet, so it's not always going good when you hear his story, but sometimes I guess it's good to hear a miracle like this where God's blessing people that are helping. And I think for us, we can have small repeated acts of generosity, right? Because that's what we should be doing, right? If you love one another, whatsoever you do for the least of my brethren, you did it for me. Jesus said that you did it for me. And so we'll get more into that in the gospel, but just remember that we need to make patterns of being hospitable to people and generous. Because if you know, it's not just a one time, this should be a pattern of our life. Because we're filled with Christ, we're filled with the Holy Spirit, we should want to help other people. And when you see people, you know, like doing events and evangelizing, it's good to be generous with them, right? You don't want to just like, here's $1 for this person. You know, you can give a little more than that.